Hello again! Today we're going to make our own Occamy from Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And as usual, our special materials are all from the dollar store. You'll need everything here, plus some other things that you can find in your home. So the first step is making the body. We're using these costume unicorn tails. They are very bushy and full, and they also have a posing aspect to them. What we're going to do is take the headbands, we are going to cut the elastic side, and then we are going to feed the bushy unicorn tails through the headband. So once you get the first tail through the headband for the body, we're going to take the second tail, and conveniently they have these little ties up at the top. So we're going to use the ties and attach those two tails together end to end. Make sure you tie it very tightly because they are elastic, so there is some chance for a little bit of a gap, and we do not want a gap. Before stuffing the second half of the body, we're going to cut the headband in half, and I'll tell you why in a moment, but just cut it in half and then feed that one half through that second unicorn tail all the way down to the bottom, and then you can use some hot glue to attach those two pieces. Keep in mind where your seams are for the headbands. You want the seams to line up just to stay consistent. And as usual, when using hot glue, please do be careful. You want a nice solid seam all around where these two pieces meet, but you don't want to burn yourself in the process. Our skeleton bird is probably the most important piece with this whole thing. They have movable wings, a movable mouth, a lot of attractive features. I actually used this last year for my pirate costume. It just kind of comes apart if you pull the rib cage. The hard part is getting the rest of the pieces to separate. The head just pops off, but this body is a little bit trickier. I had to bend it a couple times in order for it to come off. So what we're going to do now is we're going to attach or slip in the rib cage with the wings, and we're just going to kind of tuck the bottom half of the rib cage into that body, kind of like a sock, and then we're going to bring the second half of the headband up and over that tail, and we're going to meet it right there with the top of the rib cage. So just tuck those little pieces in, again securing with the hot glue. Try not to let any of the fuzz from the unicorn tails stick out from the body. Can be a little bit tricky, but just try to take your time, go around with it, and make sure everything is covered. So we're going to cut this end piece off, making sure that we don't cut past where it's already been sewn, so it's nice and flush. So the next part of this, we're going to be doing some painting. It can help if you have an assistant come and help you pick out the right brushes. Just has to be a small brush, but you really just has to feel right. You have to be passionate about it. You have to be really liking this particular brush. So this is my setup. I grabbed these paints actually from the dollar store. I ended up grabbing yellow as well as gray, but I didn't really need it. What's important to remember is that we're going to try to match the body of our Occamy. We're trying to make this face look as cohesive as possible. So we're looking for a lot of pastel colors. So we're going to start off with a lot of white, and then what I'm looking for right now is a light blue, light green, kind of like a light lake green color. So I'm mixing those together. Just try to use your best judgment. Sometimes it's best to make the green color and then add in your white and just see what comes of it. Definitely err on the side of light colors. We want a very nice light pastel. Because there's a lot of pink in this headband body, I'm also making a nice light pink that I'm going to feather in after. The face of this Occamy is what I thought I'd have the most trouble coming up with because it's such a unique dragon-like shape, but actually the skeleton bird face worked really well for this, so I'm going to show you step by step how to get it painted. So at the base of the skull, there's actually a little hole which fits perfectly inside a paintbrush, and then I'm using my thumb inside the mouth to hold it steady. Start with a nice base of the light blue color and just kind of fill in the whole skull area like I'm showing you now. We want to put a little bit of that blue onto the beak to bring some of that feather, that color in there, but we do want to keep a lot of that beak the regular tan color that it already is. Now we're going to start to be a little bit more deliberate with our brush strokes. We're going to start layering on kind of thickly that blue-green color. We're going to start around the eyes and then move back towards the back of the head. Now here's where the real feather definition comes in. We're going to lightly put some of that navy blue on our brush, and we're just going to very lightly flake it and whisk right over the wet paint that we have right now on the skull, starting again around the eyes, and then we're just going to work our way back. A lot of small strokes. We're going to be layering these strokes just a little bit at the time. Again, some on the face, some on the front of the beak, but just start in the front and work your way back. Just a lot of tiny strokes. We're going to bring that dark blue color onto the beak as well, kind of bringing that color forward and lightly blending it in with the rest of the beak color. Don't forget the bottom of the beak as well. That jaw does have some blue coloring on the Occamy, so just color that in as well. Don't forget that our body does have some pink in it, so I'm going to dip my brush into the pink, and this is going to be a lot less. There's going to be a few highlights of pink, so a little here, a little there, the same motions we were using before, just to give it that nice cohesive look. I'm going to show you how I paint the eyes. I'm going to take some of that yellow, making sure my brush is clean, and I'm going to dab some of the yellow working from the outside of the eye towards the center, almost like a reverse flower with the petals facing inward. And then I'm going to do a little bit of that blue-green, work that into there. I'm going to take a little bit of that dark navy blue and also add that to the eyes. Again, just very lightly, just little hints, tiny brush strokes. To separate the brush strokes of my eye from the brush strokes of that feathers around the face, I'm going to take that dark blue and very carefully line the inside of the eyes just to give it an appearance of an eyelid, and that will just make those eyes pop a little bit more. So when you're happy with the way it looks, we're going to let it dry. We're going to leave it, place that paintbrush into a cup and just don't mess with it. It's going to dry for about 10 to 15 minutes. When it is dry, we're going to paint on the pupils using black and a very small brush. Occamys have a very up and down slit-like pupil, so we're just going to gently put that on. So while you let that head dry, what we're going to do is start on the wings. The feathers that I got from the dollar store are very fanned out and not very pointed, so we're just going to take our scissors and get to it. We need 4 purple feathers for each of the wings and 4 pink feathers for each of the wings. So in total, 8 purple feathers, 8 pink feathers. We're going to add the pink feathers to the bottom side of the wings, so attaching with hot glue. Again, be very careful. sometimes it's good to have a second pair of eyes look over your work and just make sure that you're on the right track with everything. Some positive reinforcement is always good. So now we flip over the body and we're going to attach the feathers to the top of the wings. Same as we did before, we want to line up them kind of with the guide of the skeleton wing and just with hot glue. Once we're satisfied with the wings, we're going to go back to the Occamy face. We're going to add 2 very small white dots to the iris and the pupil, overlapping them just slightly to give it a realistic shine. For the end of the tail, we have this decorative feather which screws right off from the pen it's on. For the tail, we're going to cut the end of the headband, making sure we can pull that elastic all the way through, scrunching the headband down and cutting it very short. That way it's more of a realistic, free-flowing tail. We're going to cut that down because I don't think it needs to be that long, and then secure that iridescent feather that we got from the pen with some hot glue. There we have our body. So to smoothen the transition from body to face and to add a little bit of bulk to the head, we're going to use this posable furry stuff that I got from the dollar store. We're going to start by making a small collar out of it, so just enough for that head to be mounted on top. And then we're going to smooth that over and add another layer of hot glue so we can just stick it right on top of the end of that body. So next we're going to create that fuzzy mohawk using the same material. We're going to measure from in between the Occamy's eyes all the way down to in between where the wings join together. Again, securing with some hot glue. You want to make sure you get good adhesion. There's a lot of fuzz involved, and we want to make sure that the majority of this is glued down. Just get it adjusted and looking good. Now I chose to use a barrette, the shiny barrette, for the horns. It was a little difficult to break apart. The first part came off quite easily, but to get the little prongs unattached, it took a little bit of playing with it, a little bit of prying back and forth. Just be persistent with it. Take a moment to give your Occamy a bit of a haircut. Sometimes you might need to trim down that blue mohawk or the collar around the face just to make it a little bit less crazy. Now that there's not so much hair in the way, we can attach our little barrette horns. Just get them lined up where you think you'd like them to be and attach with some hot glue. There's really no bad way of doing this, and I liked using the barrette because it was so sparkly and it really stood out. And there you have it, your very own posable Occamy from Fantastic Beasts. I have new videos coming out all the time. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Dollar Store Crafts with Priscilla Makes. See you next time.